Have you ever found out what your own family really thinks of you when they thought you weren't listening? One evening, my uncle sent me a short video, just 22 seconds. In it, my mother, sister, and brother sat at our family dinner table, the one I had saved from foreclosure, laughing. "She's just a walking wallet," my sister sneered. My mom added, "She owes us. She's lucky we let her hang around." They were talking about me. The same me who had covered their mortgage payments for 5 years. The same me who had emptied her own savings to keep that house standing. And all this time, they were just waiting for me to run dry. But I didn't confront them. I didn't stop paying. Not immediately, because I had a plan. And when the final payment came due, I made one small move that changed everything. So stay with me, because this isn't just about betrayal. It's about how silence can become a strategy. How the quietest person in the room can become the one holding all the power. If you walked into our house, you'd think we were the picture of a close-knit family. My mother loved telling people how we stuck together through tough times. My brother boasted about how we take care of our own. And my sister, well, she floated between crisis and comfort, always landing on the softest pillow we provided. No one ever saw the cracks, but I did, because I was the one patching them up, again and again, until I was held together with duct tape and denial. Let me rewind a bit. I'm 38, an artist. Well, I was, before life demanded I become the family lifeline 5 years ago. My father passed away suddenly, and the house mortgage nearly collapsed. My brother had lost his job. My sister had just left her husband. My mom had no savings, just pride and old-fashioned guilt to weaponize. So I stepped up. I just sold a few pieces of work, had a bit of cushion, enough to cover 3 months, maybe 4. I called the bank, renegotiated terms, and made the first payment. It was supposed to be temporary, but then 1 month became 6. 6 became a year. And before I knew it, 5 years had passed. And not once did anyone ask, "Are you okay?" Instead, the house became their haven. My brother moved back in for the kids. My sister took the guest room. And my mom, well, she ruled the space like it was her birthright. They called me our rock, but it felt more like our doormat. Even the little things added up. I'd come home from working long shifts at the gallery, only to find my bedroom borrowed from my sister's yoga group, my laptop used by my brother's teenage son, full of viruses, the food I'd bought gone in 2 days, replaced with empty boxes and vague promises of, "We'll get it next week." There were moments I questioned myself. Maybe this was what family was. Maybe this is what love looked like. Quiet suffering for the people you were born tied to. But something always tugged at the back of my mind. Like the time I overheard my mother on the phone. She thinks she's doing us a favor. Honestly, we're just letting her feel useful. Or when my brother casually joked, "Don't tick her off or she'll cut off the cash flow." Then laughed like it was some sitcom line. I told myself I was imagining things, that I was being sensitive. Until that video came, until Uncle Ben, my dad's younger brother, the quiet one who always kept to himself, sent me proof. He'd been at dinner the week before. They didn't notice his phone recording under the table, didn't notice the mic picking up every snide comment, every sneer. That's when the blindfold came off. Uncle Ben didn't say much in the message, just, "You deserve to know what they say when you're not in the room. I've seen enough." I watched the clip 10 times, not because I didn't believe it, but because something broke a little more each time I did. And yet, I didn't confront them. Not yet, because for the first time in years, I wasn't the one reacting. I was observing. And when you really pay attention, you see things. Things you missed when you were too busy saving everyone else. Like how mom suddenly had a new handbag every other month. Or how my sister had an expensive new iPhone despite struggling. Or how my brother took a vacation with his kids while I was skipping meals to stretch rent money. That's when the pieces started falling into place. This wasn't just neglect. It was entitlement, and I'd fed it, but not anymore. because the next mortgage payment was just a week away. And this time, something inside me had shifted. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to cry. I was going to listen, document. And when the moment was right, I was going to disappear. I didn't say anything for 3 days. I went about my routine like nothing had changed, made breakfast, took out the trash, paid the electric bill again. They didn't notice the difference. Why would they? They never really looked at me, only at what I provided. But behind the scenes, I was watching everything. And what I saw, it shattered whatever illusion I had left. The first sign was the envelope, a bank statement addressed to my mother. She had left it on the counter, unopened. Curious, I slid it out. My name was nowhere on it. But there was a second mortgage I didn't know about, taken out just last year, signed by my brother, approved by my mom, secured by my payments. They'd used my financial contributions to take out more credit, and I had no idea. I checked the property records, public information. The house was no longer just under Mom's name. My brother had been added quietly 6 months ago, without even telling me. That night, I sat in the guest room, heart pounding, laptop open. I dug deeper. Receipts, transfers, bank activity from the joint account my father had once used before he passed. It was now used as a slush fund, vacations, electronics, spa treatments, all under the name house maintenance. Then came the tipping point. A voice message from my sister sent to a mutual friend, accidentally forwarded to me. Honestly, we're just waiting for her to burn out. When she stops paying, we'll figure something else out. Probably get Uncle Ben to help, or just refinance. But why would she stop? She has nothing else going on. That one stung. Not because it was cruel, but because it was so calculated. To them, I wasn't a person. I was a utility. So I stopped, not with a bang. No fight, no drama. I just let the next mortgage payment date come and go, and said nothing. It took them 6 days to notice. On day 7, I got a group text from my mom. Did the payment get rejected? The bank called me. Something's off. I didn't reply. On day 8, my brother called twice. No voicemail. E9. My sister left a note on the fridge. Let us know if we need to send it from the house account this month. House account? That's when I knew. They still didn't get it. They still thought I was in this with them. So I made my first real move. I called the bank myself. I explained the situation, that I'd been unofficially paying the mortgage for years without any formal agreement, that my name wasn't on the deed, or the loan, or anything official, and that I had just discovered they'd leveraged my payments to secure more credit. The bank rep was sympathetic but blunt. If your name's not on the loan, you're not legally responsible for it. You don't owe them anything. That sentence hit me like a truck. I didn't owe them. Not legally, not morally. It was the first time in years I felt free. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I opened a private savings account in a completely different bank. I redirected every dollar I would have spent on their bills into it. I started sleeping better. I even painted again for the first time in months. Then they came knocking. On day 15, my mother confronted me in the kitchen. Her voice was tight, rehearsed. We noticed the payment didn't go through. Is something wrong with your account? I stirred my tea. No, nothing's wrong. Pause. So, are you saying you're not paying anymore? I smiled gently. That's exactly what I'm saying. She exploded, called me ungrateful, said I'd left them in the lurch, accused me of trying to sabotage the family legacy. And that word, legacy, hit a nerve. Because what legacy was she talking about? The one where I gave and gave until I had nothing left? The one where they took everything and mocked me behind closed doors? No, that ends now. That night, I sent Uncle Ben a single message. I'm ready now. Let's talk. Because he wasn't just the messenger. He had his own story and a few documents he'd been saving for the right moment. Uncle Ben arrived at my apartment with a thin folder and a thick silence. We sat at my small kitchen table, an ironic downgrade from the one I'd helped my family keep, and he placed the folder between us. I didn't want to get involved, he said, but when I saw how they talked about you, I knew it was time. Inside were bank statements, emails, a copy of a notarized document from my father's will that none of us had ever seen. Apparently, my father had left a clause stating the house was never to be transferred, mortgaged, or refinanced without unanimous agreement from all children, including me. But that clause had been ignored. Why? Because no one had told me it existed. Uncle Ben had only discovered it after helping Dad draft it years ago, and assumed I knew. That oversight changed everything. They broke the will, I said quietly. Ben nodded. And that gives you leverage. I wasn't interested in suing them. Not yet. I was interested in watching them squirm. The first crack came with the second missed payment. Mom stormed into my apartment, uninvited, holding an overdue notice like it was a death certificate. The bank is threatening default. We could lose the house. I sipped my coffee. That's unfortunate. Unfortunate? You lived in that house. I paid for that house. Her face twisted, equal parts shock and fury. This is about the video, isn't it? That damn video Ben sent you. I didn't confirm or deny. Just let the silence speak for itself. Then came the threats. My brother emailed me. If we lose the house, the kids will be out on the street. Hope you can sleep at night. My sister texted, "You've always been the bitter one." Dad would be ashamed. It would have hurt once. Now, it felt like noise. Because what they didn't know was that I'd already made my move. I had contacted a lawyer, not to fight them yet, but to position myself. I filed a formal objection with the county registrar, citing the clause in the will and demanding a freeze on any future transfer or refinancing of the home. The bank took it seriously. They flagged the mortgage as disputed, meaning no further action could happen without my consent, which meant the refinancing plan my brother had applied for, instantly rejected. That's when the begging began. It started with my sister. Okay, look, maybe we went too far, but can't we just work it out? Like before? I asked her what before meant. She blinked. You pay, we manage the rest. She still didn't get it. Then my brother offered to make me co-owner if I resumed payments. Generous, right? Except he wasn't the owner to begin with. Technically, the house was still under my mom's name, pending foreclosure. And in the background, I'd been doing something far more surgical. Through a lawyer friend of Uncle Ben's, I created a trust, then used that trust to quietly negotiate with the bank to buy out the delinquent loan for far below its value. They were eager. A buyer in cash is better than a legal mess. Within 2 weeks, the trust I created owned the mortgage. They didn't know that yet. What they did know was that the final notice came. 30 days to vacate or the property would be repossessed. Mom blamed me in front of everyone. She let this happen. She wants to ruin us. I showed up that evening with a manila envelope. Inside, proof of the trust's ownership. A formal 30-day notice to vacate, issued by me. The silence in the room was delicious. My brother stood up. You're evicting your own family? I nodded. No, I'm evicting people who used me, mocked me, and left me with nothing. My sister whispered, stunned. You bought the house. I smiled. Technically, the trust did. But yes, it's mine now. Then came the implosion. Mom accused me of betrayal, told me I was heartless, said I'd never survive alone. But here's the thing. I'd survived paying for a home I didn't live in, survived being called a burden while carrying their weight, survived being invisible in a house I kept standing. Now, I was finally doing something for me. I walked out that night, leaving the envelope on the coffee table. Behind me, I heard my brother yell, "You'll regret this!" But I didn't, not for a second, because the real twist, I hadn't just bought the house. I'd bought the land behind it too, and what I planned to build there would rewrite our family name forever. I gave them exactly 30 days, not a day more, and true to form, they used every single one of them to lie, guilt, and manipulate. My brother claimed he'd spoken to a lawyer who could undo the trust. My sister tried to gaslight me into thinking Dad would be ashamed. My mother went around the neighborhood, telling everyone I had stolen the house, but the documents spoke louder. The clause in the will, the transfer of mortgage, the evidence of misuse of funds, some of which, thanks to Uncle Ben's quietly gathered receipts, bordered on fraud. And with those documents, I made my final move. I filed a petition to officially have my father's will enforced. It wasn't to punish them, though they deserved it. It was to ensure this never happened again. The court reviewed the evidence, bank records, testimony from Uncle Ben, the forged refinancing paperwork, and one very important detail. My father's signature had been digitally scanned, not physically signed, on the last mortgage revision. That was the nail in the coffin. Forgery. The judge didn't hesitate. The transfer of ownership to my brother? Nullified. The second mortgage taken in my absence? Deemed fraudulent. The clause they had ignored? Now legally binding, which meant the house could only be held by a party who had unanimous sibling approval. And guess what? I was the only sibling listed on the trust. The court awarded full control of the property to the trust. My trust. But I wasn't finished, because while they were busy trying to save the house, I'd already bought the empty lot behind it. It was worthless to them, an overgrown space no one had touched in years. To me, it was the future. I partnered with a local nonprofit that supports women rebuilding after financial abuse. Together, we began plans to turn the lot into a small community center, offering housing workshops, legal aid, and creative space for women just like me. And guess where the center's main office would be? In the house my family used to mock me in. The eviction wasn't dramatic. They left a few days before the deadline. No goodbye, no apology. My brother drove off without speaking. My sister left a post-it on the fridge. "You've changed. Hope it was worth it." And my mother, well, she left the front door wide open and the lights on, every single one of them. Like she thought I'd come crawling back and beg her to come home. I didn't. Instead, I changed the locks, lit a candle in the living room, and stood there in silence. Not the silence of defeat, the silence of peace, but one final twist remained. A few weeks later, I got a letter in the mail. No return address, just my name, handwritten. Inside was a faded photo of my dad and a note. "I always believed in you. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you from them, but I hope you'll protect yourself now. Dad." It was dated 6 years ago. Uncle Ben admitted he'd found it among old documents Dad never sent. He'd held on to it, waiting for me to finally believe in myself the way my father always had. That letter broke me in the best way, because for so long, I thought standing up for myself meant turning my back on my family. Now I understood. It meant honoring the only family member who ever truly saw me. I stood at the edge of that empty lot, blueprint in hand, imagining the walls we'd raise, the lives we'd rebuild. And I thought they called me a burden. But I was always the foundation. The house looked different once they were gone. Quieter, cleaner, and somehow lighter. I opened every window, let the air sweep out years of resentment, manipulation, and silent guilt. I repainted the walls, not because they needed it, but because I did. Soft sage green in the kitchen, warm ivory in the front room, and in what used to be my mother's bedroom, a mural, my first one in years. A woman, arms outstretched, face to the sky, standing barefoot in a field of light. We opened the community center 6 months later. It wasn't big, just a refurbished garage and a few rooms converted into shared space. But it was enough. Enough for women who had nowhere to go. Enough for young girls who wanted to learn financial literacy. Enough for survivors who were tired of being the strong one in silence. They came slowly at first, a trickle, then a flood. Each one carried a story. Stories of being used, overlooked, dismissed. Stories that sounded heartbreakingly familiar. One afternoon, I was walking a woman named Denise through the property. She'd left a toxic marriage and was rebuilding her life, brick by brick. She stopped by the kitchen window, looked out at the mural, and asked, "Do you ever wish you'd just stayed quiet? Avoided all the drama?" I smiled. For a long time, silence felt like safety. But now I know it was just survival. She nodded, and I knew she understood. There's a difference between helping and being used, between generosity and self-erasure, between love and guilt-drenched obligation. It took me losing everything I thought made me good, to realize I was never bad to begin with, just buried beneath everyone else's expectations, needs, and entitlement. But now, I don't just own a house, I own my voice, and I use it for the women who still whisper apologies when they walk into a room, for the daughters called ungrateful for saying enough, for the ones who keep giving, hoping one day they'll finally be seen. Because sometimes the only way to win is to walk away, quietly, strategically, and with grace. Let them say you were the villain. Let them mourn their control. Let them call it betrayal. You'll call it rebirth. I don't miss them. Not the noise, not the tension, not the invisible weight of being everyone's safety net. These days, I paint more, laugh louder, sleep deeper. And sometimes, when I walk through that same front door they once tried to keep me out of, I whisper to the walls, "I'm not your burden. I'm your beginning." Have you ever been called a burden by the people you've carried? Have you ever walked away from a family that broke you, only to find yourself again? Share your story in the comments, because someone reading might need to hear that they're not alone. And if this resonated with you, subscribe. There's more to come. In the next story, we meet a woman who discovered her husband had secretly maxed out her credit cards and disappeared to Europe, but he had no idea. She had already filed for divorce 3 months earlier and frozen every asset he touched. It's called, "My Husband Stole My Credit Card and Fled to Europe, but He Forgot One Detail." You won't want to miss it.